You can see the drop in the distance. You can hear delighted screams from guests going down the bayou. It's a place where fireflies glow, a river winds through the trees, and a thoughtful spot where heffalumps and woozles wait.
You're listening to Castle Talk Radio. We're live on the airwaves with Becca and Jessica. Now let's jump into this week's episode.
Welcome back to a new solo series where we're going land by land through Disneyland Resort, giving you everything you need to know in this one episode of Castle Talk Radio. I'm Jessica, and today I'm covering Bayou Country. This is Disneyland's newest reimagined land, which opened November 15th of 2024. I'll talk about what to ride, what to eat, and share a little bit of history and some things that you won't want to miss before your next trip. So Bayou Country is what you might remember as Critter Country, but it's since been reimagined. And this land sits tucked away in the back corner of Disneyland. It's past New Orleans Square, and it also borders Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. So I like to think of Bayou Country as an extension of New Orleans Square. I mean, you're away from New Orleans, but you're still in Louisiana, and here you're stepping into that bayou portion where there's lush greenery, there's flowing water, music, and that key ingredient of Disney storytelling. This is a really great place if you want to slow down a little bit and need a break, especially when the rest of the park feels busy. And I'm going to tell you where you can find that little retreat. But let's start with the headliner attraction. That's Tiana's Bayou Adventure. So this attraction picks up after Princess and the Frog. So the story that you know, but it's a continuation. So Tiana is preparing for Mardi Gras celebration for her business, Tiana's Foods. And of course, during this celebration, something goes awry, something's missing. The band is not there, and she is getting everyone together, getting things together to pull off this great party. And this is what you see play out during the attraction. So you're joining her on this journey through the bayou to find the band members. And these are all cute little critters. And then, of course, it ends with the iconic 50-foot drop. And even though Disney put a lot into the storytelling and telling us about it as this ride was being reimagined, I think the storytelling is actually easy to miss on the attraction because you're usually looking for something familiar. We're looking for that retelling of Princess and the Frog, and we're just like, what am I missing? This isn't the story I know. It's not the songs that I know. Some of them, but not all of them. So like I mentioned, this happened after Princess and the Frog. So if you go into it with that mindset, it will give you, I think, a better experience. And you really are immersed into Princess and the Frog in the bayou and into the story right when you step into the queue. So slow it down a little bit. Take your walk through the queue, especially if you're in the lightning lane queue, because you just tend to like zip right on through. And it's okay if you walk a little bit slower so that you can see the things that they've put into the queue, which is so adorable. You'll find newspaper clippings hanging on the wall about Tiana's life and journey. You'll see family recipes, and you'll be able to walk by Tiana's kitchen, which is adorable. And then outside, there is Tiana's food truck. So you see that right as you exit the attraction. And notice that the license plate is missing. Well, that's because a critter has been using it as a musical instrument on the ride. So those are a little couple things you can look out for as well to see like which critter is using that as a musical instrument. And then you get off the ride and you see that it is indeed missing from Tiana's Foods truck. On this ride, there's also an original song, Special Spice. So that is sung by Anika Noni Rose, and she is the voice of Princess Tiana. So it's really nice to have her voice back, and of course the different animatronics of Princess Tiana throughout the ride, which I think is an excellent touch because it keeps reminding us who this story is all about. And when you're on this ride, remember that you need to plan to get wet, especially on your lap. Yes, because the water flies over like a wave and it can really do some damage. So that actually happens during smaller drops inside the attraction, not on the one that you would think it would give you the most water experience there. But when you go down the drop, the main drop of the attraction, remember that there's a photo in that spot. And those of you who purchase Lightning Lane Multipass, you get to download those photos for free. That's included with Lightning Lane Multipass. And of course, you can lock in your Lightning Lane Multipass price when you get your discount tickets ahead of time from getawaytoday.com/Castle Talk. We've got those discounts for you pre-loaded. All right, so back to Tiana's Bayou Adventure. The ride has lightning lane option and a minimum height requirement of 40 inches. It does offer rider switch and single rider. So beyond Tiana's, you've also got the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, which is a great, gentle, dark ride. It's really good for going on if you're doing rider switch with younger kids who don't meet the height requirement of Tiana's Bayou Adventure. It's also just a really cute ride to slow things down. I love a good dark ride. Speaking of dark rides, I didn't mention Tiana's Bayou Adventure, I've heard, is great to do at night because you can see a lot of more details and you also get to see the attraction lit up when you're in the outside part. So, back to the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. Another thing to be aware of is that it can be a teeny bit scary. So, if you're worried about that, I would watch a YouTube ride through video of that for your kids. So, there is one more attraction in Bayou Country. Can you think of what it is? It is the Davy Crockett's Explorer Canoes. Now, that's one of those classic Disneyland experiences that's definitely underrated and often skipped over. I mean, I can probably count on one hand how many times I've done it in my life. But I always am like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go on the canoes. And we get wrapped up in other things, but it is such a good attraction to do on a really moderate temperature day because you do actually paddle the canoes. And if you're doing it right and actually paddling, it does get a little bit tiring. So the way I like to see it is like you're doing leg day when you're at Disneyland because you're walking around, you're doing the stairs, you're getting in all the steps. So you need to balance it out with arms. That is going to be Davy Crockett's Explorer Canoes, and then of course Web Slingers over at California Adventure Park. So let's make sure we get a good full body workout there. And since we've got our workouts in, we can go now to the food. And in Bayou Country, we have Hungry Bear Barbecue Jamboree. This is where you're going to find those hearty, Southern inspired options, barbecue, and big plates of food. So oftentimes we'll get a plate of food that two of us or maybe three of us can split depending on how hungry everyone is. Has like different meat options like brisket and pulled pork, and then they have those corn ribs, so they look like ribs but it's corn on the cob. So just a really fun like way to incorporate that dish into it. And at Hungry Bear Barbecue Jamboree is my favorite like unwind relaxing spot. So you have two levels. The top level is where you order and pick up your food, and there's seating right there, but you want to keep walking towards the back of the seating area. So that's up top, and there's just a huge extended seating area out there. Once you go all the way to the back, you can usually find more secluded seating. Of course, during peak times, it's going to be busier and more crowded. And then there's also seating downstairs, and that's going to be covered because you're under the patio, and then you're right on the same level as the river. That area does tend to get more crowded because it's also by the restrooms and the fuel rod swap section, and people stop in there as they're going in and out of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge as well. So I really like to do the top section in the back There is very little music playing back there, so I think it's another great spot if you're having a little sensory overload to go back there. The only thing that I have noticed being back there is while the music is toned down and it can be really nice and quiet, there is not really a breezy flow there. So if it is hot, you're not going to get that like pass through air to cool things down. Now, the train does go right by there as well. So you might hear a little bit of that in the background noise, and like you can wave to the passengers there. It is a great quiet spot. One of my children took a college final exam in that very spot because we happened to be traveling and she needed to do that final class and final exam, and it worked out just great. Anyways, moving on with more food is Pooh's Corner, and that's up by the attractions. Very popular place because you have all the classic treats like candied apples and cookies and all the things that you can get at Candy Palace on Main Street. But over in Pooh Corner, you can also get Tigger Tails, which are super popular, a marshmallow wand type of thing with caramel and chocolate covering. So all the kind of sweets and things. Another thing they've done really well in Bayou Country is theming the shops to Tiana's. So we have Pooh Corner, and then the other half of it is themed to A Princess and the Frog, where you can get all kinds of merchandise and different things. So really, really cute. Now, really quick history before we head out for the day. So before it was Bayou Country, you knew it as a home to Splash Mountain, which opened July 17th in 1989. Yep. And this was actually the first major water flume thrill ride that Disney ever built. And at the time, it had the longest drop in the world. Now, the original working title of Splash Mountain, fun little tidbit for you, is Zippity River Run. So they axed that for Splash Mountain, and then now we have the whole retheme of Tiana's Bayou Adventure. So while the story has completely changed, the ride system itself is the same. And now with this newer version, we really see the storytelling come out in front. A lot of people weren't familiar with where Splash Mountain came from because that's kind of been a buried piece of Disney history. And now we have something that we can all celebrate together and really enjoy this extension of The Princess and the Frog. So, from those cue elements to the music and looking for those little critters interacting with the props, it's just a really great way to all of us come into that world of Bayou Country. Now, if you're planning your day at Disneyland, here's a couple things I recommend. Tiana's Bayou Adventure is the biggest priority in Bayou Country. So you can rope drop it, be prepared with ponchos or water resistant things, because if you rope drop it, you will get on without a problem, no wait. Fantastic, right? Or you can build a lightning lane strategy around it, which is what most people do because most people don't want to get up and get ready and looking cute and then get wet. But you need to be thinking about getting your lightning lane before everybody else does. So check out the temperature, see what the weather's going to be like. People start thinking about getting a lightning lane for this once the sun starts to hit and they're already hot. Then everyone starts thinking, let's get our lightning lane for Tiana's so that we can cool down. But what I want you to do is I want you to look at the temperature, see when it's going to start getting a little bit uncomfortable or where you're going to be like, we're going to want to cool down. You're going to get your lightning lane well before the sun has actually hit and everyone is thinking about that. So you'll get your lightning lane, no problem. By the time you get off, you'll see that line queue has spiked in wait time, and you'll see that the lightning lanes have now pushed out to a couple hours or more beyond because that's when everyone generally thinks about it. Another tip for you is to get your food at Hungry Bear and mobile order there. And then you can just kind of make a little a whole little time of it. You have typically you can ride Tiana's before lunch in the summer because that's the peak time of heat. Then you can have your lunch at Hungry Bear Barbecue Jamboree that you've mobile ordered, ride Winnie the Pooh, and just have a really good reset for the afternoon coming in. Everything is part of the experience, and I hope that you love Bayou Country. It really feels intentional, and to me, not just a ride replacement. It's full of storytelling, immersive atmosphere, and I just love the way it's an extension of New Orleans Square. Thanks for listening into our solo series covering the lands of Disneyland. Next up, we'll be headed into another land with a completely different feel, so stay tuned for that and be sure to drop us a rating and review for Castle Talk Radio.